Hello, everybody. So, I was going to do my live stream as a recorded video this week because some of you may know that it all went a little bit awry last on Wednesday when I'm normally here. But anyway, it. Hmm, that's not going to work, is it? Bear with me a second. Right, I'm just trying out because it is allowing me to stream through the same screen to YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. So let's give this a go. Hopefully that will work. Thank you for joining me live because this is nowhere near my normal time. But as I say, on Wednesday, Instagram got the tea time live, but Facebook and YouTube, which is based on my computer, blah, 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 the Wi-Fi went down. My phone kicked in for Instagram on 4G, so that was fine. Anyway, it meant that the stream didn't go ahead. So I was going to pre-record it, and I decided, no, why don't I just come on live and do it again, especially as it appears that I can now do it to Instagram at the same time as YouTube and Facebook, which is just a techie, geeky excitement on my part. But there you have it. So today, so if you were with me on Wednesday, you may well feel like this is too much of a repeat if you were here on Instagram, but uh, on Facebook and YouTube, we just didn't have one, so let's do it. So Manda and Anaga, thank you for already joining me on YouTube, on Instagram. I can see loads of you joining. Hi, welcome. So I will try and flick between the two screens so that I can deal with your comments. I think there's a slight delay on Instagram, so excuse me if my comment seems reply to you seems a little bit out of timing. So welcome. My name's Philippa Lacey-Brawl, and I run British History Tours, British History events, and British History on YouTube and on Patreon. So it's all about British history, really, surprisingly enough. And occasionally, I like to, well, we always cover lots of interesting topics, but occasionally I like to look at a particular person out of history who has been forgotten. And today I want to cover Prince Henry Frederick. I've just realised I put Prince Frederick in the title. That's the wrong person. His name is Prince Henry Frederick. Um, so I want to talk about him today, about how his popularity in life, and so anyone. It's like us now. Um, well, Diana is a good example, but I don't know, say Prince William or Kate Middleton, that if you in a couple of hundred years' time, no one would even know their name. He was that big a figure. So I want to talk about him. Um, and that's gonna be the main focus of today. But before I get started, please, thank you for being here. Thank you if you're listening on the podcast as well, or watching on the catch up, which you can always do. Um, so the podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all over the shop. And it's just British history. And if you ever look, there's my face on there, so that's the way you can tell. Because actually, when I decided to name the podcast, I forgot really British history was going to be um, rather a popular title. So, hello, Alison. How are you doing? So yes, so thank you for joining me. You can support me on Instagram with badges and gifts, I think now, especially on the reels. Um, Stars on Facebook and super chats on YouTube, but I just love you being here anyway, so thank you very much. Please hit likes and hearts and all that kind of stuff. That really, really, really helps. And subscribe on YouTube if you are not already. It is just youtube.com/British history. The way I really like you to support me, though, is to go over to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/British history, and it's £5 a month. And today you will get access to, so early access and an extended version of an interview, talk really, that I did with Leslie Smith about sex in Tudor England and women's health in the late 16th century. It's a fascinating talk. I think you're gonna absolutely love it. So if you're a member of my Patreon, that goes live in just under 3 hours' time, patreon.com/British history. And if you're not a member, don't worry, you will get to see, it won't be ad-free and it won't be the extended version, but you'll get to see most of the interview on next week, so in 7 days' time. Um, Also, if you're on my Substack, you will get the audio version today from my paid Substack. Anyway, that's overcomplicating it. But I would like to give a shout out to Bill, Deb, and Jeanette, who have all become patrons this week. And before we get on to talking about Prince Henry Frederick, not Prince Frederick, sorry for the confusion. That wasn't a very good start, is it? But I want to say thank you to Laura Loney and to Katie Holman and May Global for sending me. It was the night before Christmas. It's a really fun book, written by Laura and illustrated by Katie, and loads of different Tudory Christmassy things in there. It's really fun and informative. So thank you ever so much for that. They knew I'd been going through a bit of a hard time with my accents and everything. So really, really big thank you to Laura and Katie and May Global. So thank you for that. Um, um, right, let's get on to Prince Frederick, and then I'll tell you a bit more about book club as well later, in case you're interested in that. So Prince Frederick. Let me see. Hopefully this works. I don't know if it can work on Instagram. Let's give it a go anyway. I'm gonna bring up a picture of him. Um, this is Prince Frederick. In fact, I'm gonna go for this one first. Prince Henry Frederick. Goodness me, why do I not get this right? Prince Henry Frederick. There you go. So he was born to uh, King James VI of Scotland and his wife Anna of Denmark. Anne of Denmark. The name seems to be used interchangeably. And he was born at Stirling Castle on the 19th of February, 1594. So he's born in Scotland at Stirling Castle. And he's the eldest son of James VI and his wife Anne of Denmark. Immediately on birth, he becomes, and this is very impressive, he becomes the Duke of Rothesay, Earl of Carrick, Baron of Renfrew, Lord of the Isles, which is very Game of Thrones-esque, and Prince and Great Steward of Scotland. So those are titles he gets. The incredibly important baby is Prince Henry when he is born. Um, his name, Henry and Frederick, are thought to have come from Henry, his grandfather, who was Henry Lord Darnley, who we spoke about last week. So his grandmother, Prince Henry's grandmother, Mary Queen of Scots, and we talked about that relationship last week. Um, so please go back and have a look at that or listen to that podcast if you're interested in the Mary Queen of Scots uh, implications in the murder of Lord Darnley, Prince Henry Frederick's grandfather, and the complications around what was her relationship with Bothwell, her third husband, like? When did it start? Looks like it does go through on Instagram. That's very cool. Okay, um, so he's born at Stirling Castle, 19th of February 1594. He is the most important baby in the country. His baptism ceremonies and celebrations occur in the August of 1594. I'm interested actually. I don't know the answer to this, but I'm presuming the baby's christened, but the baptism comes later, and it's a big, big event anyway. Either way, supposedly costing something like 100,000. I don't know what the Scots were using at the time, but it's a lot of money, equivalent to his mother's dowry type money. I wonder if that's true, but either way, the celebrations were tremendous. It shows just how important this baby boy is. Um, the now I spoke to Gareth Russell when I was preparing for this little chat because because he's actually writing a book on the private life of James VI of Scotland, who of course becomes James I of England, and we'll get into that in a moment. And he's right, yeah, so Gareth is writing a book about the private life of James. And I wanted to speak to him because there's some speculation, this rumor that starts up a little bit later on, that Prince Henry Frederick actually isn't the son of King James. And that seems to stem from the fact that James becomes known to be, and is accepted to have been, homosexual, and the theory going that therefore he could not have actually slept with a woman and sired children. Um, which of course is not true. That is entirely possible and indeed, happened in this case and in the case of all their other children. So that was just a spurious rumor that has no grounding. Um, Gareth's view also is that if James had had any inkling that any of his children weren't his, then Anne of Denmark would certainly have been punished severely, and of course, then she wasn't. Um, and if you want to hear Gareth, actually do a talk about, uh, Lord Henry Frederick's Lord? Prince Henry Frederick's mother, Anne of Denmark, then Gareth is going to be doing a talk for the Stuart's Online History Festival in March on Anne of Denmark, so um, you can get your tickets for that. Put my little ticker tape along the bottom, and you'll all be able to see the addresses for that coming up. Um, so yeah, so we'll get on to that. So like I said, he's grandson of Mary Queen of Scots. He's the great, great, great grandson of Henry VII twice over via his grandmother, Mary Queen of Scots, and his grandfather, um, Henry Lord Darnley. And I will do a family tree of that. I'll do a reel of the family tree of that so you can see how that works. It's rather fascinating. So it's said that he was named after his grandfather, Henry Lord Darnley, um, and, Henry, obviously, and the Frederick came from, his maternal grandfather, excuse me, Frederick. Um, so he's therefore kin of, some way, shape, or form of Elizabeth I of England. And she's keen, of course, to keep relations open with Scotland, not so much well, we've spoken about Mary Queen of Scots on other lives, but yeah, so anyway, but excuse me, Elizabeth sends Henry, the Prince Henry, a miniature of herself, uh, painted by Nicholas Hilliard in 1596. Um, Now apparently James is delighted with his son. He takes more of a interest in his studies and his upbringing than perhaps paternally. However, there's an account of him sort of going to visit, Prince Henry when he's about 1 and encouraging him to make a mark with, w you know, to write and make a mark, and then exclaims, "This is the first mark of my son," which to me says there's some very strong paternal love sort of there. So, a pride that, that comes from being a father. So I'm not sure where that comes from. So I'm very much looking forward to Gareth Russell's book on James to see if we get, some answers to this. But anyway, so let's have a look at Henry Frederick himself. So we know about his parents, we know about his grandparents. Well, Henry Frederick, he was tall, athletic, well proportioned apparently, and, a groom of the bedchamber, William Haydon, described him excuse me, his whole face and visage comely and beautiful, looking for the most part with a sweet, smiling, and amiable countenance, and was full of gravity. He wasn't um he wasn't an airhead, he was a serious person, so um, he had the looks, he had sporting prowess, he had the physical prowess, and he also had his own, um, very clear idea of what is right and wrong, and we'll come back to that slightly in a second, but we'll come back to that in a second. He was supposed to be energetic, he was intelligent, and this made him incredibly popular. He also showed a talent for leadership and patronage, and again, I'll go into that in a bit more detail. But he definitely this clear sense of right or wrong is demonstrated in a few, specific examples. So he didn't approve basically of his father's fun-loving antics at court, or the court's fun-loving antics, should I say, underneath his father. He objected to the imprisonment of Sir Walter Raleigh. And then when his father tabled the idea of a French marriage, uh, he replied that remembering France is Catholic and, James and his sons, so Henry is, what they describe as here as an obdurate Protestant. so he's not moving on this idea. And actually, nor did his brother Charles. His younger brother Charles became Charles the First, and he did make that, French marriage, um, to a Catholic, Henrietta Maria, but he did actually remain Protestant. But anyway, Henry, said he resolved that 2 religions should not lie in his bed. Henry was not going to make this French match of a marriage. So there are, instances where it's seen he is at odds with his father. He doesn't like the way his father runs his court, he doesn't like his father's actions, and he doesn't agree with his father on the marriage alliance that he should be making. Um, so how does he get on with the rest of his family? Well, there's one anecdote of him teasing Charles. Now Charles, he was quite a sickly young boy. He had, he had problems with his legs, perhaps, um, um, uh, um, rickets, I think maybe. But, there's this one anecdote of him teasing Charles about his legs. He says, "Well, when I'm king, I'm going to make you the Archbishop of Canterbury. You can wear a long robe and cover up your rickety legs," and sticks a big hat on his head, and to which Charles pulls off his hat, stamps on it, and, his hat stamps on it and runs away upset. It's one anecdote, and Charles is known to have absolutely doted on his older brother, so I'm not sure we can read too much into that. Um, I mean, Henry is, uh, he's charismatic. He's somebody you want to be around. He's good at sport. He loves his sports. He loves art. So sport-wise, he'll play billiards. He goes hunting, hawking, um, fences. He dances. Um, yeah, for someone who doesn't like, I don't know what James was doing that he didn't approve of, but, a court under Henry Frederick sounds like it would be quite fun. Um, he was advising that he shouldn't learn to swim when he was he'd have been about 13 years old, because swimming was considered really dangerous, too dangerous to learn to do. Obviously, the irony being, of course, if you can swim, it's not as dangerous. Um, so, yeah, and he was very into riding as well. And he was this my God, sorry, the only text that overrides my do not disturb is my daughter, who's for some reason decided to text me in the middle of school. So apologies for the beep. But, Henry Frederick is also a very keen collector of paintings, sculpture. He particularly likes those out of the Netherlands. He collects coins, um, medals, books. And he's a patron of the arts, so he's known to have patronised people like Isaac Oliver, who, painted one of his, a beautiful, beautiful miniature of him. So yeah, he's all these things. He sounds amazing, right? I think so. Um, and he's Prince of Scotland, but in 1603, of course, when he is 9 years old, his father becomes also King James the First of England. And he automatically, as the eldest son, becomes the Duke of Cornwall. That's the title the heir to the throne automatically receives, the idea being that there are lands that go with it that can, sustain the household. That doesn't quite happen in this case because under Edward and then, briefly with Mary with having no, heirs, and then, although you have a husband, but you have Edward, then Mary, then Elizabeth. Under those, this obviously hadn't been split out of the main sort of income directly to the monarch. But anyway, that's the idea of it. Um, he didn't take part in the coronation service. This was a quick, um, hurried coronation service, which happened on the 25th of July, 1603, the feast of St James's Day. James was very keen that the coronation did go ahead on his saint's day, his namesake saint's day. However, it had to be short. There was no coronation procession. There was no, coronation feast. and that was because plague was ravaging London at the time. But the following March, when the plague had abated, there was a coronation or a formal entry into London, and Prince Henry Frederick was, uh, in that procession, can't speak today, sat, on horseback behind his father. Um, in 1610, Henry is created Prince of Wales, and uh, this painting is one of those, painted to commemorate that event, apparently. And the figure in the background, if you can see this sort of bare-chested, angel man, this is actually, I think this is time, this is Kronos. You can see in the background, you probably can't see my pointer, but, so behind Henry and the horse, walking beside the horse is Time, and in the background on the brick wall, you can see the 3 feathers of the Prince of Wales. He's also got feathers, and the horse has got feathers. But yeah, so this is to commemorate him being made, Prince of Wales in 1610. Um, he becomes, active in political matters. He was responsible for reassigning a man called Sir Thomas Dale, who was an English Navy commander, and he was responsible for getting him reassigned to the Virginia Company of, uh, London's colony in North America. Uh, and he set up, so Dale, Sir Dale set up Henricious Town, and that was a settlement, um, sort of, as an alternative to Jamestown. And that apparently is where Pocahontas was kept captive. I just read that briefly, so I don't know the whole story, but of course I know who Pocahontas was, and she was apparently kept captive there. Now, I don't know if any of you live anywhere near there or have ever been anywhere near there, but apparently Henricious Town is now a living history museum. But obviously Henricious is named after Henry, as is Henrico County. Um, he was also, uh, he also held the position of Supreme Protector, which I don't know if that's like Managing Director, of the Company of Discoverers of the Northwest Passage. So these were people trying to find a link, a a a sea link, uh, navigable sea link between the Atlantic and the Pacific over the top of Canada. And he also patronised, Robert Harcourt's expedition to Ghana. So he was very active. He knew what he was interested in. Um, he already had ideas of, um, what he found important, what he thought should be pursued. Uh, he wasn't at all worried, it appears, to criticise his own father. And of course, you begin to get factions there always. Yeah, the Prince, uh, when I say Henry Frederick, I get him mixed up because there is a Prince Frederick in the Hanoverian period, but you get that. You get exactly the same, this faction happening between the court of the father and the sort of, the court of the Prince of Wales, the, kind of, royal court up and coming type idea. Um, so yeah, so he's into everything. He's into art, he's into sports, he's into politics. He's charismatic, he's wonderful. He's going to, and people are looking forward. They can see the future. They've got a king, who's come down, and he has this amazing son, an heir. And then if anything happens to Henry, well, he's also got another heir in Charles. Unfortunately, something does happen to Henry. Believe it or not, this boy managed to do all of this, um, and yet died at 18. He dies on the 6th of November, 1612. Of typhoid fever, and it's fairly certain he dies of typhoid fever, I'm told, because there was actually a post-mortem done, because there was concern that he'd been poisoned. Um, I have also read an account that says that he died after so he caught the typhoid from swimming in the River Thames, so he must have finally got those swimming lessons all taught himself, and he died at St James's Palace, London. St James's Palace was, built about 100 years prior, well, not quite 100 years, 80, 70 years prior, um, That's me doing quick maths, not knowing when it wasn't built. It when not knowing when it was built. It was built around 1532, 33. It was begun for the prince that Anne Boleyn was going to give the 8th. So it's supposed to be the House of Prince of Wales. Anyway, so Prince Henry Frederick, he lived and he, died at St James's Palace, where his body then laid in state for 4 weeks. His funeral was at Westminster Abbey on the 7th of December, and, there were parallel funerals in Oxford, Cambridge, and Bristol, which I'm interested to find out more about because I've never heard of having parallel funerals before. Um, but this is the first recorded state funeral of a prince, and that wasn't the only first. His effigy that was used in the funeral, it was dressed in the robes that he'd worn for his investiture as Prince of Wales 2 years earlier, and it's the earliest surviving effigy of somebody not a king or a queen. I say surviving. The robes that the effigy was dressed in, they disappeared fairly quickly. Within 4 years, they'd been stolen. And then his head was stolen in 1872, and one was given back to Westminster Abbey in 1986, I think it was, but, Westminster Abbey's website doesn't claim that it is actually his head. It says one was given back that might have been. So I don't know if they're saying it is or it isn't. By the way, I'm going to put links on the, YouTube, episode of this version of this. I'm gonna put all the links to some further reading and my sources, below, so you can go off and have a bigger read about Henry Frederick if you wish. But he is buried in the Henry VII Chapel at Westminster Abbey, actually in the same vault as his grandmother, Mary Queen of Scots. And another interesting fact is Mary had she wasn't originally buried there, she was buried at Peterborough Cathedral, or yes, it would have been cathedral by then. But James, her son, when he became, King of England, decided she should be moved to Westminster Abbey, places surrounded by other kings and queens. And she had actually only been reburied there on the 11th of October. So she's joined by her grandson, who she would never have known, on the, 7th of December. And they're buried in the same vault, although a um, he doesn't have a tomb. His name is inscribed on a plaque, uh, but yeah, there's no tomb to him, possibly because of space. It's not completely not completely known. But the public's reaction, because he was so popular, the public's reaction to his death, um, was it was huge. Charles Carlton wrote that few heirs to the English throne would have been as widely and deeply mourned as Prince Henry. I mean, he wouldn't know, but at the same time, it just shows what the depth of grief, was for the loss of Prince Henry Frederick. Charles, his little brother, who has said he now becomes heir to the throne, he would eventually go on to be Charles I of England. He, despite being ill, was chief mourner at the funeral. James refused to go. King James refused to go to the funeral. However, I'm not sure. Again, we'll find out hopefully when Gareth writes his book, perhaps we'll cover this, as to why, he didn't go to the funeral, but it was, as far as I understand it, customary for the parents not of royalty not to go to not to go to funerals anyway. His sister Elizabeth, at the time she was preparing for her wedding, she didn't eat for days, and his father, James, is known to have just to have outbursts, when discussing other state matters, "Henry is dead. Henry is dead." And you could just feel that that grief, um, father, son, w w just must have been, just that's just heartbreaking. Um, so yeah, so this young boy, he's done all of this, he's promising, everyone really loves him, and yet he actually, he doesn't, he doesn't live. Um, so and because of that, and because his younger brother, I think, this overshadows him, a bit like Prince Arthur was shadowed by Henry VIII, Henry Frederick is overshadowed by his brother Charles I, and what a mess he makes of being king, of course, his actions, and yeah, then it lead to the English civil wars of the mid-17th century. Um, so there is a overview of Prince Henry Frederick. So I hope you enjoyed that. Um, and so just to remind you, if you want to listen about Sex and the Tudors, my interview with Leslie Smith, that goes live in an hour and a half for patrons, so 3 o'clock on Friday the 15th. So if you are a member of my Patreon, you just have to head over to patreon.com/British History, and the link will be there. If you're not a member, do exactly the same. You can join for £5 and you can watch it. Um, you can also put your questions forward for Illyri Lynn. This is Illyri's book on Tudor fashion. Uh, Henry Frederick off the screen now. On Tudor fashion. This is Illyri's book, and I will be interviewing Illyri in January. So if you have any questions about Tudor fashion, maybe you have this book, but Tudor fashion, especially at the royal court, then I can put that question to Illyri when I meet her. Um, so again, just go over to patreon.com/British History, and you can put your questions to Illyri. Um, Amanda says the sovereign was never to be associated with death. It was believed that the king or queen's royal presence could bring into question their own mortality. Thinkable possibility, according to Google. Thank you, Manda, via on Google. Yes, exactly. So I'm not quite sure why that's a comment on James, that he doesn't go to Henry Frederick's funeral, whether there was a different custom in Scotland. But I don't know. I don't know. It does seem a bit bizarre to me. Um, so that is all I really wanted to thank you so much for if you're here live, thank you for catching up as well, if you're catching up. This is an odd time of the week for me to do it, but after the internet went down 20 seconds into me doing it at my normal time, I couldn't leave it. So if you're around next week, please join me at 3 o'clock on Wednesday, back to my normal time, 3 o'clock on Wednesday for our little Christmas. Um, you can ask me anything style live. If you want to ask me about places I've been, if you want to ask me about the interviews I've done, or maybe tours that are coming up, I will just mention that the April Anne Boleyn tour is completely, utterly, fully booked. We have one room or two people or one person left on the May Anne Boleyn tour, and we have up to 3 people can still fit into the Rise of the Tudors tour in September next year. We have incredible speakers on all 3 of those tours. So, if you're thinking about it, please, get in touch if you need more information, or you can check all the details out on britishhistorytours.com. Um, Go over to my Patreon if you love British history. We've just done our book club meeting last Sunday, and the next one is Anne Boleyn and Elizabeth I by Tracy Borman. You can see I'm already into it. Our meeting is on the 14th of January. Again, if you're a patron, you just get automatic membership of the book club. So that's right. Go over to patreon.com/British history. Um, and next week, I will be announcing the full lineup for the Stuart Online History Festival in March. There are a couple of early bird tickets left for that, and then it goes up. The Stuarts 2024.eventbrite.co.uk. It's just 10% discount for people who are in there really early. But next week, I will announce the full lineup of speakers. We have confirmed another couple in the past few days. I have some cool books. Thank you very much, Anaga. Maybe I will do. No cat. Dr. Cat has just done one, so I don't want to appear to copy. But maybe one day I'll take you through my bookshelf, my carefully curated bookshelf. It's not that carefully curated. I say I like that book and I get it, and sometimes I get sent them as well. So I will let you know when I get sent books as well. Um, so thank you ever so much, everyone. Thank you for joining on Instagram as well with this slightly smaller picture because it is streaming through the same service. I'm being techie and geeky now. But anyway, that's why I've gone live on Instagram as well today, 'cause I could do it all in one go, which is very nice. Um, yeah. Amanda says, "I wish it wasn't so hard and expensive to get hardbacks in English." Are you in the US, Amanda? Hardbacks are expensive, um, anyway, and just as a final note, 'cause this came up actually on, I noticed it on a Instagram thread the other day about book reviews um, and people somebody was doing book reviews, and they were being criticised for giving, less than 3 stars or something. Now, if I if I ever say, that I think a book is worth reading, it is because genuinely I think it's worth, uh, reading. And if I recommend a book, it's because I understand that you have earned your money, it's hard-earned money, and that to pay for a book, whatever it is it's hard-earned money going on that. So, if I recommend a book to you, 1, I will tell you if I was ever if I'm sent it free, of course, but I still won't recommend it unless I think it's worth reading, because I respect that you have earned your money and, um, and you need to be careful as to how to spend it. So, watch out, I would say, for people who review books and they're all glowing. I don't know. Maybe I will just leave out unless I'm asked specifically about ones. Like, I will tell you for free, I'm not going to be reading Philippa Langley's Princess in the Tower. I'm not going to. It's £25, and I did my review on the documentary and the podcast, a few episodes ago, so you can check that out if you want to poke that particular bear. I did. It's quite enjoyable, actually. Um, so yeah, anyway, went on off on one a bit like that. Um, do I have The Private Life of Elizabeth I by Alison Weir? I don't think I do. Now, actually, this isn't my full bookcase. I have another one, so I need to fill this one up from the other one, which will be a nice, trip down memory lane as well, I think, to some of the books that I've forgotten about already. So maybe we'll do a bookshelf review one day if that's of interest. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. I will see you all next week at 3 o'clock on Wednesday, hopefully. You can, send me some, well, you can come on live and ask me history questions if you like. You can ask me, like I say, about the tours and the events, the people I've interviewed, whatever you like. You can ask it. It's up to me whether I answer it. That's what we always say. We've also got our last History After Dark of the year next Wednesday at 8 o'clock. So, hopefully I'll see you at one of those. Right, everyone, thank you ever so much for joining, and I will see you really soon. Bye-bye.